Alright, it's your boy TTK. We're back after a 2-week period. Life got busy and that, so we're back with one video. Gonna try and get as much videos out as we can before, you know, the exams start and all that good stuff. I've been working hard behind the scenes. So we're back with another video today. Is a discussion based video. We're gonna be basically giving all the legendary Pokemon, or where is applicable, new abilities. Now, some of these Pokemon only have one ability, these legendary Pokemon, so we're going to give them a second ability. Whether this helps them, you know, competitively or not will be taken into account. Also thematically as well, whether this Pokemon should have another ability that, you know, would, like, you know, fit their theme quite well as well. So either way, if you guys do enjoy the discussion video, join the kingdom. We're on our way to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and like, we still been getting our subscriber count going up, despite the fact that I have been AFK from the scene for a bit now. So I want to shout out to all you guys that have been subscribed recently. But either way, let's start looking at these legendary Pokemon now and all that good stuff. Now, Gen 1 to Gen 2, pretty much all the legendary Pokemon have hidden abilities, so they have more than one ability. So we don't have to go over those guys. So we're going to start in Generation 3 actually with the Latios and Latias. So these guys only have Levitate as an ability, and I'm just like, Levitate is a pretty basic ability. It's not a bad one by any means, but at the same time, anything that just floats, they're like, yeah, let's just give it Levitate. It doesn't need any other ability, which I find to be pretty lazy, to be honest. Like, Latios or Latias could easily have a secondary or hidden ability on the side as well, and I don't think many Levitate Pokemon in general have a second ability. Like, if we look at this, pretty much the only Pokemon that has more than one ability with Levitate is like Coffin and Coffin, Weezing, and like Zong. So like, out of all the Levitate mons, Duskull as well. But yeah, like, everything else just has Levitate as a solo ability. So either way, what ability will I give Latios and Latias? Now, I'm gonna give Latios a pretty controversial ability, one that would probably break them on completely. Maybe I should just do almost any ability as the thing here. That might be a bit more helpful, to be honest. But yeah, we're gonna give Latios speed boost. Now you're probably thinking this guy's tweaking. You're gonna give Latios speed boost. Now hear me out, yeah. Look at any of Latios's Pokemon Pokedex entries. It talks about how fast it is, how it can boost its speed when it tucks in its wings and that. Like, why wouldn't a Pokemon like this have speed boost? Espathra has speed boost, and you know, to be honest, it would make sense for Latios to, you know, have speed boost to like somewhat succeed Espathra as a Pokemon, because Espathra is not a legendary, while Latios is like one of the most OG legendaries in the entire franchise. So giving it something like speed boost would be pretty broken. Like, mind you, in singles, this is probably Uber's level threat already. Like, you see what speed boost did to Blaziken, a mon that was pretty much outclassed by Infernape in Generation 4. But giving it to a mon like Latios with 110 speed, 130 special attack, and now has a signature move that is stronger than Psychic, like, maybe I'm going a bit overboard with this, but I think speed boost would fit Latios perfectly, despite the fact of whether it's broken or not in singles. But either way, I can't say the same for Latias though. I was thinking maybe these two would have the same ability, you know, just give it speed boost. But like, Latias's Pokedex entries always talk about telepathy, like it can communicate telepathically with other Pokemon and human beings. Now, this obviously means I could give it telepathy, and like, at the same time, telepathy is a useless ability in singles, but in at least a doubles format of VGC, telepathy does have its usage. It's basically an ability that prevents you from taking damage from moves that like hit all adjacent opponents. For example, like, if you Surf in doubles, Surf is going to hit your teammate as well. Earthquake, Landswrath, can't think of any other examples at the top of my head, but those are the biggest two examples, EQ and Surf. So Latias having that would make it a pretty decent support mon, even though compared to other psychics or even fairy types in a doubles perspective like Cresselia or, you know, any other fairy type, yeah, Latias is probably lacking the support tools, you know. It doesn't have like, no, it has Wish actually, but, you know, it's just going to be outclassed by Cresselia most of the time. But at least telepathy does give it a sort of you know, niche going on for it. Now, moving on to the next ones I want to talk about, I did reach the weather tree of Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza, and I'm just like, giving these guys any other ability just wouldn't really make any sense. Like, I can't think of any other good ability that Groudon could potentially have that actually does fit it and wouldn't outright just be ultra broken. Like, Drought, Drizzle, and Airlock respectively are just like thematically good abilities on these mons. So I don't really want to, you know, give them like any other ability, to be honest. But like, if you guys have any cool abilities that you could give these guys, you know, that would be pretty cool. I'm gonna make a box because we have a lot of mons to talk about. But yeah, on to Generation 4 now though. We do have the Lake Trio of Mesprit, Uxie, and Azelf, and like, these guys have been in the trenches for quite a while now. At least less Azelf, but like Mesprit and Uxie have been in the trenches for quite a very long time. Like, Uxie is just the worst Cresselia, which is a shame, to be honest. They're quite similar Pokemon. Both have really high mixed defenses. And you know, they're both levitating psychic types, and we've spoken about how levitate is a pretty basic ability to just slap onto anything that's not on the ground, and I do think is lazy design. So we're going to start off with Uxie here, and I have two ideas for Uxie. One which is pretty much like a custom Theorymon sort of ability that I thought of in my head, and another is just the one that actually does exist in game. So yeah, we'll start off with the ones that actually do exist. I forgot I changed it to almost any ability so we can actually see these abilities. But yeah, so we're gonna start off with 4-1. Now 4-1, some of you guys probably don't even know this is an ability. It's only on the Hypno line and the Mashana line, so not that many Pokemon actually have the ability 4-1. But what 4-1 basically does is the Pokemon on switching is alerted to the highest base power move of their opponent. Now, like, the reason why I chose 4-1 was basically because of the fact that Mesprit Uxie is known as the knowledge Pokemon and is the first Pokemon that, you know, gave knowledge to human beings. Now, you'll think Uxie is smart enough or even just knows, you know, what other Pokemon are capable of doing. So that's why 4-1 actually does kind of fit Uxie. In terms of battling, 4-1 is pretty situational / useless in general. Like, you don't really need to know. You could see a more experienced competitive Pokemon battler would already know somewhat the highest base power move that an offensive Pokemon could be running, and on a defensive Pokemon it doesn't really matter because Uxie's not taking damage from defensive Pokemon. So you could say 4-1's a pretty useless ability, but at least thematically it makes sense. Now onto the more interesting option that I thought of, and you know, I'm gonna make up an ability on the spot here, and I did think about it. We're gonna give Uxie an ability called Inspiration. Now Inspiration is a pretty cool you know, custom ability that I thought of in my head. Now, it's basically a doubles only ability. It won't work in singles, but just to give Uxie a bit of a niche or, you know, a unique thing over Cresselia is the fact that it has this inspiration ability hypothetically. Now, what inspiration does is essentially on switching, Uxie gives a special attack boost to its teammate. Now, I do think this could be really cool, especially since Uxie has Trick Room in his move pool, so it can basically set up a slower special attacker as its teammate in doubles, and I do think that would give it quite a niche, to be honest, especially something like, let's say Exploud was in the game. Exploud isn't necessarily the slowest one, but base 68 speed is slow enough to function on the Trick Room, and I could just see Throat Spray, Inspiration, Uxie with Exploud, and like, you would have a +2 Exploud at like after one turn, and like +2 Boom Burst with Scrappy, like that's just gonna Oko everything. So yeah, I do think that would be a pretty cool ability to have on Uxie. So yeah, it's just a doubles ability that gives its teammate special attack boost on every switching of Uxie. So like, you could think it's a bit broken because you could just swap out Uxie, swap in Uxie, and its teammate will always have a like keeps getting special attack boost because you could just spam protect on the other Pokemon. But you know, I do think it's a pretty cool ability for you know, Uxie to have. Now we're gonna go with Mesprit now, and Mesprit is arguably a bit harder to decide what ability to give to, because it's just like in the middle of Azelf and Uxie. Like, Uxie is bulky and Azelf is faster and stronger, so like, it's a jack of all trades and master of none. I wouldn't even call Mesprit a jack of all trades, at least in a, you know, standard format sort of thing. In the lower tiers, yeah, Mesprit's, you know, versatility and its like overall mixed stats allow it to pretty much do anything it wants, but you know, the power level is peaking at like PU or NU in like certain generations as well, where like Gen 7 PU, for the example, that tier couldn't even handle Guzzlord, for example. So you know, take that as you will, but either way, Mesprit needs something, you know, it needs something, because offensively Azelf is just better, and even Azelf is facing some issues in this power creep generation of Generation 9. So what could we give Mesprit to, you know, set it apart from Uxie and Azelf and getting rid of you know, having to run Levitate, because that's boring game design. So you could give it Sheer Force, you could give it Serene Grace. But I don't know. Like, you'd either have to make a custom ability like I did with with Yuxi with inspiration, or just try and think of something else. But like right now, I don't have anything for Mesprit, I'll be honest, guys. Like down below, let me know if you guys have any sort of current ability in the game that could help Mesprit out, or make up a new ability that could give this thing some sort of life in the limelight of competitiveness. But yeah, moving on to Azelf though. Azelf is probably not gonna get ultra broken ability. Like Azelf is still a decent attacking Pokemon. Like 125 in Gen 9 is still kind of bonkers, especially the fact that they got mystical power, which basically boosts their special attack all the time. So yeah, what would I give Azelf? Now you're probably thinking this guy is also tweaking again, but I'm gonna give Azelf Vital Spirit. Now the reason why I'm giving Vital Spirit to Azelf is because Azelf is known as the willpower Pokemon. I looked at Vital Spirit's Japanese name and it's called willingness, at least if that's what it's translated into. And you know, Azelf, willingness, willpower, like I'm connecting A to B very easily. I think you guys can do the same as well. And you know, Azelf, like if you look at Azelf's sprite, yeah, this guy's eyes are just open all the time, bro. Like this guy doesn't sleep, he doesn't blink. Like Vital Spirit is honestly perfect on something like Azelf in my opinion. But yeah, that's it for the late trio. I do think I mean, Vital Spirit wouldn't really change anything for Azelf too much. I mean, being immune to sleep is good, but like Levitate is still nice to avoid sticky webs, spikes, and you know, toxic spikes. But just making sure it has a secondary option that it could potentially want to run, you know, I always think is a good thing to have. Now onto Cresselia, aka the better Yuxi. What ability could I give to Cresselia? Now, none of the current abilities that I went through, I think there's like 310 abilities. I looked through all 310, couldn't really find anything to give to Cresselia. Now I'm going to make another custom ability here now, guys. It's going to be called Good Dreams. Now, if you guys are kind of seeing the connection already with Good Dreams and Bad Dreams, because you know Cresselia and Darkrai are polar opposites, Good Dreams is going to be another doubles based ability because Cresselia is a beast in doubles. This ability is basically going to heal your Pokemon by 12.5% if they're asleep. Now, it's a pretty situational ability and not always going to be come into play. But I just think having another ability like this is pretty cool for Cresselia, and also just makes its link to Darkrai a lot stronger as well. Now, you could say Cresselia could put something to sleep and then, you know, it'll heal them. But I'm trying to think if this thing even gets Hypnosis. Doesn't get anything to put opponents to sleep. Regardless, Spore is plentiful in doubles format, so just having a mon that's put to sleep. Cresselia has Good Dreams as its ability, and then you're getting healed for 12% of your HP. That is pretty solid in my opinion. But yeah, that's it for Cresselia in terms of that. And finally, the last Gen 4 Pokemon we're going to discuss that is legendary is Regigigas. Now, Regigigas design-wise is meant to be bad, is meant to have slow start, or else it'll just be too broken. 100 speed with its defensive stats and its massive attack stat. How else could we nerf Regigigas? Now, there's only one ability that I can give to Regigigas that would nerf it again, but even then, this ability is 10,000 times better than Slow Start, and I have to give it Stall. Now, Stall is Sableye signature ability, which basically makes it move last in any priority bracket that is in. So if you're, like, let's say Regigigas is attacking at +1, it's still going to, and you're attacking at +1, Regigigas will always move last. Yeah, using the same or greater priority. Oh yeah, it just moves last all the time actually. Let me not even get that twisted. It moves last all the time. Now that doesn't really mean much for Regigigas. It will just make it go like fully like defensive max HP investment, and it's still going to be attacking like a beast with its 160 attack stat. But what else could you really give Regigigas that wouldn't make it ultra broken? And even then, Stall makes this thing 10,000 times more better. So yeah, let's just stick with Slow Start, and Regigigas you know, will be doomed to have Slow Start for the rest of his life. Alright, now moving on to the Gen 5 legendaries where my, you know, rule set is applicable to. We're going to start off with the Swords of Justice, Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion. Now, if anyone asks me in the comments, what the hell is Keldeo? I am saying legendary Pokemon, not Mythicals. Mythicals would make this list and video a lot longer than it needs to be. So, yeah, Mythicals will be another video if you guys are interested in that. But either way, I think there's only one ability that would honestly make sense for these guys, and that's Sharpness. No questions asked, just give these guys Sharpness. They need it. And yeah, The reason why I want to give these guys sharpness is because back in the day, Gen 5, Pokemon Black and White comes out in 2011. These guys had a pretty cool signature move called Sacred Sword, which essentially ignored, you know, stat changes. So like if you are at +2 defense, they don't care about that. It's just going to attack you as if it's at +0 defense. But yeah, Sacred Sword became a pretty cool move until they gave it to Aegislash, until they gave it to Hisui Samuro, until they gave it to Kartana. Am I missing anyone? Probably, but it doesn't matter. So these guys basically just lost their cool signature move, and I hate it when Game Freak give away signature moves, because like, what's the point of having a signature move if you're just gonna give it to other Pokemon? You know, and I mean, some legendary, some mythicals, they do escape from this curse. You know, no other Pokemon has Keldeo Secret Sword. Pretty much no other Pokemon has Lugia's Aeroblast, for example. But yeah, all Mewtwo Psystrike. But yeah, I do think these guys deserve some love, especially after the fact that they're, you know, Paradox forms basically just outclass them in every way. Like Iron Boulder is better Terrakion. Terrakion has fallen off so much, it landed in PU at some point, and obviously he's in RU now because it's still a freaking Terrakion. But you know, power creep hasn't been good to these guys whatsoever. So, you know, making sure they have a new ability that could actually help them out offensively would be pretty nice. And also at this point, just give them a new signature move, man. Like Sacred Sword being lost from these guys, make a new move called Legendary Blade, bro. Legendary Blade, 100 base power fighting move, basically does the same thing as Sacred Sword, just 10 more base power. That's what they need. These guys need Legendary Blade. But now moving on to the genies, the forces of nature, those guys. Landorus, Tornadus, Thundurus, those guys incarnate forms have hidden abilities. So we're going to be talking about their Therian forms, which have tended to be more broken in competitive Pokemon over the years. Because Gen 5 Taunty was in Ubers. I'm pretty sure Thundurus... Was Thundurus in Ubers in Gen 5? I think Thundurus I or Thundurus T was in Ubers. Then Landorus T has been an OU goon for the past, you know, 4 generations. But regardless, what would I give to Tornadus T? Now, Regenerate is a pretty solid ability in general, but to have a secondary option always would be good to have. And like the ability I've chosen for Tornadus T here is a custom ability that I've made called Lord of Wind. Or Lord of the Wind, like that sounds a bit better. Now, what this ability does is kind of crazy, but I had to tune it down in my head because at first I was like, I'll give it this and also this as well, but I was just like, that secondary effect is also freaking broken as hell. So let's just tone it down a little bit, put it in the realm of, you know, not trying to break Tornadus T again. But Lord of the Wind essentially does sets Tailwind, and that is pretty good in doubles in terms of just swapping in and Tailwind is set up. And like Tornadus is always about controlling the wind, is also based on the Fujin wind god of Japanese mythology, and you know, that's basically the embodiment of the wind. And I think that Tornadus having an ability that can set Tailwind would be very good thematically, in my opinion. Now, the secondary effect I was talking about earlier that I was just like, yeah, this is too broken, is if its wind moves got a boost in damage. Now, like Taunty does a lot of damage, so giving them on with 121 speed, under Tailwind, has nasty plot, and also boosting Bleak Wind, Storm or Hurricane. Yeah, I'm getting too ahead of myself, innit? But yeah, just saying Tailwind is perfectly fine, to be honest, and I don't think it would be a broken ability per se. In singles, it's probably busted, I'm not gonna lie. Having them on with this speed, having double speed, would be insane, because in revenge killing this would be practically impossible, unless you have like a Scarf Regieleki. And I don't even know if Scarf Regieleki outspeeds +2 Taunty. I would have to calc that. But yeah, that would be pretty fun. But yeah, moving on to Thundurus T, actually, we're giving it a already existing ability. One that probably is pretty cool is Transistor, which is Regieleki's signature ability, which basically just boosts electric damage by 30%. Now, Transistor got nerfed this gen from 50% boosted electric damage to 30% boosted electric damage, and yeah, I just think this would fit Thundurus T. Like, what else could I really give? This mon is all about using lightning to destroy everything, and yeah, there's not really any other ability that would fit. I was thinking the other, you know, electric based abilities like Lightning Rod, but you already have Volt Absorb, and like swapping between the two, like they'll just kind of make each other obsolete in a way. Though Volt Absorb does heal Thundurus T, and Lightning Rod just boosts special attack if it's hit by electric move. But Transistor is kind of in the middle of that, where you just get boosted electric damage. So I think that's pretty cool. And then Landorus T, on the other hand, Intimidate is one of the best abilities of all time. So I doubt in doubles it would ever swap out Intimidate for this other ability that I'm going to give it. But we're just going to give it an ability called Land's Power, or you know, something along those lines. I can't think of any other good name, is what I've written down. But Lance Power is basically like Transistor Dragon's more. It basically just boosts Landorus's ground damage by 50%. You know, his Dex entries is always talking about how he's making the land abundant. You know, it can grow crops, all of that, you know, stuff. And yeah, all of its other abilities in its incarnate form are always boosting its damage in some way. Sand Force is boosting its ground damage in sand. Sheer Force is boosting Earth Power because Earth Power has secondary effects. And Land Power will just continue to boost Landorus's damage. So I do think that's pretty cool to have on Landorus here. Alright, now onto the Gen 6 legendaries. We only have Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde. And I'm just like, well, Zygarde, I can't really give another ability. Like, there wouldn't really be anything else. Like, it wouldn't make sense for Zygarde to have more than, like, 2 abilities in terms of what it does. Because Aura Break is basically meant to counter Xerneas and Yveltal. And then Power Construct to make Zygarde into Zygarde Complete. So, I don't think Zygarde needs another ability. But Xerneas, on the other hand, might as well just give it Misty Surge. Like, just to summon Misty Terrain. And maybe rework Misty Terrain to, boost Fairy damage as well. Just, for... No, I can think about it. I can think of a name. It basically Misty Surge. But let's just call it Misty, you know, Drive, for example. Like, I'm thinking of something. But Misty Drive basically boosts Fairy damage and then also summons Misty Terrain. Somewhat similar to Koraidon's Orichalcum Pulse and Miraidon's Hadron Engine. So, yeah, just having an ability like that. Now, Yveltal's also going to have a custom ability as well. And maybe this is a sign for Legends ZA. That these guys are gonna get some new stuff, but you know, theory crafting, you get me. But yeah, we're gonna have a new ability for Yveltal called Life Power. I was thinking it goes along the lines of Supreme Overlord, where your teammates give you power if they're fainted, but Yveltal gets stronger if the opponent's teammates are down as well. So you know, that would also be a pretty cool ability to have for Yveltal indeed. So yeah, that's the Gen 6 legendaries done. On to Gen 7. I have a few to go through for Gen 7, but let's start off with Type Null, and a lot of people still forget Type Null is a legendary Pokemon, but I'm going to give this guy Berserk, because you can't really add another ability to one like Silvally, for example. So Berserk makes sense for Type Null. It doesn't help it in any sort of way, even though its special attack stat is actually pretty good. It's actually pretty nice. If I go into Nat Dex, we can actually look at Type Null's move pool for a second. Yeah, it doesn't really have anything, but yeah, Berserk just makes sense because of its Dex entry, talking about the fact that it has to wear its helmet or else it's gonna go crazy. So yeah, just a simple ability change there. Wouldn't really be too relevant for Type Null, but more of the interesting ones we're gonna discuss are Solgaleo, Lunala, and Necrozma. Now, I'll get onto Necrozma later because I have to take its Duskmane and Dawnwings forms into account. But let's start off with Solgaleo. I was really thinking about this one, and it was a bit hard to give this one a pretty good ability. But we're going to give Solgaleo the... we're going to give it another custom ability, and I'm going to call this one Power of the Sun. Now, what Power of the Sun does is basically a fire type version of Steelworker or, you know, Steely Spirit, for example. It just boosts fire type damage by 50%. Now, I'm giving this to Solgaleo because this mon is the literal embodiment of the sun. Like, a lot of people have said this mon should have been a fire type in the first place, and the fact that it has just a ability that is a copy of Clear Body always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, especially the fact that it had pretty strong fire type moves and Fire Blast, Flare Blitz, Heat Crash. So yeah, giving it a move that basically gives it stab on its fire type moves makes pretty much good sense to me. I don't think anyone will argue with that. And yeah, could also give it Flash Fire because, like, the Flash Fire would make this thing too broken. To be honest, like, that's one of its main weaknesses. But I never understood the sun Pokemon being weak to fire. Like, it doesn't really make sense. But at least Power of the Sun makes sure that, like, you still have that, you know, fire, light sort of theme going for Solgaleo. Now, for Lunala, we also have another, you know, custom ability that I made up in my head. We're going to call this one Moon Caller. Now, this goes to Lunala's Dex entry of, like, being the caller of the moon or something along those lines. But yeah, this one's a bit more situational and a bit more harder to explain. But essentially, it utilizes Lunala's, you know, move Moonlight, which is its main recovery move, at least in a non-Nat Dex format now. since it lost Roost. But every time it moonlights, it basically gets a Calm Mind boost. Now, you're probably thinking this is broken, but, you know, the fact that I had to have Shadow Shield as an ability because 2 of its weaknesses are ×4 weaknesses. So, you know, I was thinking that, you know, both Solgaleo and Lunala have somewhat, you know, one has a defensive ability as well, but I'm just like, give Solgaleo a bit more offensive ability, and then also kind of hark back to Lunala's like kind of mix over offensive and a defensive ability as well, because you do get a Calm Mind boost when using Moonlight, and Moonlight also just heals you back to full HP as well. You can outplay Sucker Punch and all that stuff. So yeah, I do think these are pretty cool abilities to have on Solgaleo and Lunala. Now onto Necrozma. I'm going to discuss all of its forms. Ultra Necrozma is not going to get mentioned because that's not in the game anymore, quite unfortunately. But yeah, in terms of Necrozma, I honestly decided to give it Defeatist, and you're probably thinking, why would I want to nerf Necrozma this badly? Now, if you really think about it, Defeatist, you might as well not have an ability with Defeatist if you're above 50% HP. So are you really losing out on much? I guess not running Prism Armor, but you know, that's besides the point, isn't it? But yeah, I'm giving this Defeatist because of the Pokedex entries stating that, you know, this thing's searching for light, and if it doesn't get its light, it starts to, you know, slow down and weaken. Now, this sounds perfectly, you know, thematic with Necrozma here. It's gonna, like, is losing energy, and obviously Defeatist halves your attacking stats if you're below max HP. So as Necrozma is, you know, taking damage and is going through battles on its search for finding light, it eventually just gets weaker. I do think it's a pretty cool ability in terms to give to Necrozma here. Onto his Dustmane form though, I decided to give it Tough Claws. Again, some Dex inspiration here. Talks about the fact that it uses its claws to, you know, basically rip into its enemies. Now, Necrozma Dustmane has a pretty high attack stat and a lot of moves that do physical contact damage. Like his signature move, Sunsteel Strike, that does contact damage. Knockoff does contact damage. Psychic Fangs now has contact damage. Like, this one's going to be doing so much damage with Tough Claws, and yeah, it just gives Necrozma Dustmane a lot more offensive capabilities as well, already when it has such a high attack stat, but you know, that's besides the point. And Necrozma Dawnwings, I'm giving this thing Dazzling. Now, Dazzling is probably I said probably twice. It's probably one of the most synergistic abilities with Necrozma Dawnwings. Because again, you look at its typing, it's ×4 weak to Ghost and Dark. And you know, think of the priority moves on that side. You have Shadow Sneak and you have Sucker Punch. 2 moves that completely destroy Necrozma Dawnwings. Dazzling prevents priority. So, you know, that helps out against Pokemon like King Gambit. You know, you have options to hit that thing with, you know, Heat Wave, or, you know, Terra Fighting, for example, which does get rid of your, you know, Dark weakness, for example. But again, like, you're still neutral to Shadow Sneak from other Pokemon. So yeah, just having something like that would be pretty nice for Necrozma Dawnwings. And again, the Dex entries talk about it, you know, firing off lasers all over the place. And, you know, if you've ever seen a laser or bright light, it's pretty dazzling. So that's why I did it like that. So yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Now, I just realized I completely forgot to talk about Necrozma, and not Necrozma, Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem. So we're going to cover those guys real quickly as well. I'm probably going to put this in between the Gen 5 and Gen 6 section. Completely forgot to talk about these guys. I've been out of the game for a bit too long now. I've forgotten how to record videos properly. But yeah, Reshiram, Turbo Blaze is a pretty good ability, all things considered. But if I was to give this thing any other ability, I guess I would give it Flash Fire, just because of the fact that it already has a ×4 resistance to fire type attacks anyway, so you might as well make that immunity, while, you know, Reshiram's able to generate heat with its overdrive form and, you know, just boost its damage output that way. So I think that's a pretty good ability change there. I could see in some situations you would actually want to run Flash Fire as well. You know, Heat Wave is common in doubles, and also just being able to switch into Will-O-Wisp and getting a you know, Flash Fire boost as well. So that's pretty cool. Now, Zekrom, I was thinking about Zekrom, and then I realized, oh, I could give this thing Volt Absorb as well, toting along the same lines of Reshiram because of its ×4 resistance to electric as well. But Motor Drive fits so well, it's honestly insane. Its Japanese name translated is basically electric engine. You know, Zekrom's tail is basically a generator engine sort of thing. And yeah, Motor Drive would be pretty cool to have. You could switch into T-Waves and get a speed boost. Also helps with like Dragon Dance sets. You'll get to +2, for example, and the +2 speed Zekrom is pretty much not going to get revenge killed that easily. And yeah, I do think it fits Zekrom pretty well as well. And then Kyurem, on the other hand, I'm giving Kyurem a custom ability called Freezing Air. Now, you're probably wondering, what the hell is this Freezing Air ability of mine going to do for Kyurem? Well, Pressure is a pretty decent ability, but not in Gen 9 anymore due to the fact that Sub and Roost sets aren't existing anymore since Kyurem lost Roost. So Freezing Air would be a nice alternative to Pressure because of the fact that at the end of each turn, anything on the field just takes 12% damage. Now, you might think this sounds crazy because you're basically just poisoning Pokemon without actually clicking a poison type move or clicking Toxic, but you know, Kyurem's Dex entry talks about how cold it is and the fact that it's constantly producing ultra cold air. And I do think this would be a pretty nice ability to have. In doubles, it could be detrimental due to the fact that everyone on the field other than Kyurem is just going to be taking 12% of their HP every turn. But yeah, I do think this is a pretty cool ability to have for Kyurem in general. Alright, now onto the Gen 8, you know, legendaries now. And Gen 8 will be the last generation we're looking at because of the fact that I basically saw the Gen 9 Mons. I was like, their abilities just fit them perfectly, and getting rid of them just doesn't really make much sense from any sort of perspective in general. Like, Koraidon and Miraidon are always going to have their abilities. The Treasures of Ruin, you know, have their Ruin abilities, and then Ogerpon and Terapagos are really, like, tied to the terrestrialization mechanic, so it wouldn't really make much sense for me to add any other abilities to them. But either way, let's look at Zacian and Zamazenta now. Both of their forms share the same ability, so it doesn't really matter what form I use here. Zacian, easily just give it Sharpness. It has a move. Sharpness would really help Zacian Crowned a lot more than like regular Zacian, since this one doesn't get Behemoth Blade. But at least in terms of its slashing moves, hey, it has Air Slash. But yeah, you might as well just keep Intrepid Sword on this one, but at least Crowned has, you know, a way of boosting Behemoth Blade's damage to even obscene levels. Like, 100 base power getting boosted to 150, then adding Stab onto that is kind of insane. It has a head smash basically without any recoil whatsoever, which is honestly pretty cool to see. But yeah, I would just give both Zacian form Sharpness, even though the hero form doesn't really benefit much from it. Zamazenta, on the other hand, might as well just give it Battle Armor. There isn't really any other ability I could really think about for Zamazenta. I guess not being critical hit when you're setting up Body Press would be nice, you know. That's pretty cool to have. But yeah, Battle Armor makes the most sense for a Pokemon like this one. It's basically a massive shield. You know, shield counts as armor, all of that good stuff. But yeah, onto Eternatus, on the other hand. Pressure, again, is another, you know, lazy ability to just give to any imposing Pokemon. But if I was to give Eternatus any other ability, I'd give it Sheer Force, just because of how much, like, energy Eternatus is. It can provide energy for an entire region for the rest of eternity, basically, which honestly fits with its name, Eternatus, of course. And yeah, Sheer Force would be pretty nice on it. It has a lot of moves that can, you know, secondary effects, such as it stabs in Sludge Bomb and Sludge Wave, Fire Blast and Flamethrower, Gunk Shot if you want to run physical Eternatus for whatever reason. It does have Dragon Dance, by the way. But yeah, just it has a lot of other moves that, you know, have secondary effects that honestly would boost its damage output quite greatly in general. So yeah, I do think that's a pretty cool addition to Eternatus. Onto the Regis. Regidrago and Regieleki. I couldn't think of one for Regidrago, so again, type down in the comments down below if you have any cool abilities to give to Regidrago. But if I was to give one to Regieleki, I'll just give it Lightning Rod. It fits. It basically is just electricity incarnate. It can absorb electricity and then just boost its damage output like that. But yeah, you're probably gonna want to keep transition on this like 9.9 out of 10 times. But the good thing about Lightning Rod is that it draws electric moves to itself, so you know, it's a redirection tactic in doubles. So I do think Lightning Rod would have its niche on Regieleki if you wanted to keep it, especially in Generation 8. Like, one of the reasons why Regieleki was so good in Gen 8, well, Transistor did a lot of damage, yes, but it also had Electro Web as well. And like, to counter any other Regielekis in the metagame at the time, to, you know, stop Electro Web from hitting both of your opponents, I do think Lightning Rod Regieleki would have been cool for that. But yeah, definitely a pretty good ability to have on it. Urshifu, on the other hand, there's really only one ability I can give to this guy and his rapid strike form, and that's Iron Fist, just to boost surging strikes and wicked blows damage. Pretty no-brainer as well. Boost drain punch damage as well, especially the fact that it has SD now. You can also stack it with iron with punching glove, and you know your punch moves are just going to do a lot of damage. So yeah, Iron Fist is pretty obvious. And yeah, onto the birds now of Articuno G, Moltres G, and Zapdos G. I should have said that in the actual order of how they go, but you know, that's besides the point. So yeah, what will I give these guys? I couldn't think of anything for Articuno G, I'll be honest. Like, the dex entries are also pretty barren as well, so I couldn't really think of anything from a thematics perspective as well. I guess you could give this yeah, I really don't know what to give this. Psychic Surge, just to make it a bit more relevant, I suppose. Like, Psychic Surge would help. It does get expanding force, and yeah, it would be a decent option or alternative to like Indeedee forms at the moment. It would still be, would this be better than Tapu Lele? Arguably kind of, but that flying typing defensively for Psychic versus the Fairy typing defensively for Psychic, Fairy is obviously much superior, but at least in terms of you know, offensive wise, Psychic flying is definitely better offensively. But yeah, that would be pretty cool to see. So yeah, just give it Psychic Surge. This one, Zapdos G, give it a custom ability called Iron Kicks or Iron Feet. Yeah, basically the kick version of Iron Fist. Make a new category of moves called kicking, whether that's rolling kick, triple kick, high jump kick, and you know, thunderous kick, which is Zapdos' signature move, which always lowers the defense. It's honestly pretty strong. 90 base power, doesn't miss, and drops your defense all the time. Yeah, that's pretty strong. So yeah, just give it Iron Feet, and you know, we got good stuff going for it. And then Moltres G, we're gonna give it a signature custom ability as well called Dark Fire. Now, this is honestly probably the best thing I could have given it. Dark Aura could have also probably fit this one as well, but I do want to keep signature abilities primarily as signature as I can. You know, Yveltal has Dark Aura as its ability, so let's just think of something else. So with Dark Fire, pretty much all of its dark attacking moves also have fire type damage added onto it. Now, I do think that's pretty cool. Like, there's not many situations in Pokemon where attacks have two type, you know, effectiveness on it. The only move that comes to mind, and the only move that does exist for that, is Flying Press, which is Hawlucha's signature move, which deals both fighting and flying damage at the same time. And it'll basically be along the lines of this as well, but the dark type moves have added fire damage onto it. So Fiery Wrath would actually be a fire type attacking move as well, which I do think is pretty cool. It would also apply to Snarl as well, but seeing how it only gets you know, 3 special dark moves, and you know, you're not running this thing as a physical mon, but it does have a decent attack stat. So Sucker Punch having fire type damage, so it means that you can actually hit steel types for super effective with Sucker Punch. I do find that to be pretty funny as well. But yeah, yeah, that's it. We've covered all the legendaries that have only one ability that we could give secondary ability to. So I hope you guys did enjoy this one. Leave a like down below if you guys did. We will be back into content sooner or later, but you know, I'm a busy guy now, so you know, I'm just gonna try my best to pump out as much content as we can. But yeah, thanks for watching again, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.